5 signs an elderly person is in their final years. Don't ignore these important warnings. My friends, have you ever heard news about an elderly person you know? One day they seem perfectly healthy, but just a few weeks, or even a few days later, they are gone forever. Why does this happen? Is it because their health declined so rapidly? Or were there warning signs all along that we just didn't recognize? There's a saying that we all have our time. Everyone must go through this cycle of life, from birth to old age, sickness, and death. That is an unavoidable law of nature. But if you pay close attention, you'll notice there are very subtle signs that can tell you an older person may be in their final year of life. If we spot these signs early, what can we do? It's not about changing their destiny, but about making the final days of a loved one's life warmer, more meaningful, and filled with fewer regrets. Today, I will share with you 5 important signs that an elderly person is approaching the end of their life. Please listen until the end, because the 5th sign is one that many people dismiss, only to realize its importance when it's too late. Are you ready? Sit down and listen to what I have to share. The first sign, a serious decline in eating and drinking. My friends, have you ever noticed an elderly person in your family suddenly eating much less? Even if they used to have a very healthy appetite before. They only pick at their food, a few bites of rice here and there. Even their favorite dishes no longer interest them. Sometimes, all they have in a day is a few sips of water or a few spoonfuls of soup, just to have something in their stomach. Many people think it's just old age, that they've lost their appetite, or they're eating less because they're not feeling well. But in reality, this could be one of the very first signs that their body is transitioning into a different phase. A phase of preparing to leave this world. Let me tell you about my neighbor, Mr. Henderson. He used to be so strong. He enjoyed every meal, and he especially loved the beef stew his daughter-in-law would make. But recently, when I went to visit, I saw him sitting at the dinner table, just pushing the food around on his plate. He'd take a few small bites and then put his fork down. His daughter kept encouraging him to eat more, but he would just give a faint smile and say, "Everything just tastes bland now. I don't have the appetite anymore." At first, everyone thought it was just a temporary loss of appetite. That tastes change as you get older. But then, he started losing weight rapidly and his body grew weaker. One day, he passed away peacefully in his sleep. Looking back, his children and grandchildren were startled. They realized that his loss of appetite, his lack of interest in food, was a warning sign that no one had paid attention to. You see, when a person gets older, their body doesn't work the same way it used to. The digestive system slows down. The organs begin to shut down, so they no longer feel hungry or thirsty like before. Some people don't even feel thirsty, which can lead to dehydration without their family even knowing. Seeing this, many families try to force them to eat and drink, thinking that eating more will make them stronger. But in reality, when the body has reached this stage, forcing them can make the elderly person even more tired and uncomfortable. The important thing is to create a comfortable atmosphere for them. Choose soft, easy-to-eat foods. Serve smaller meals throughout the day. And if they don't want to eat much, don't blame them or worry excessively. Have you ever witnessed a case like this? Do you have a loved one whose eating habits changed, just like Mr. Henderson? If so, please share in the comments so we can talk and help each other better understand these subtle signs. The second sign, reduced interaction and speaking less. My friends, have you noticed an elderly person in your family has become much quieter lately? They don't seem to enjoy conversation like they used to. Before, they might have sat and talked for hours, telling stories about the old days and asking about the grandkids. But now, they respond with only short, clipped sentences. Sometimes, they just sit in silence for the whole day. You might ask a question, and they just nod or mumble, "uh-huh," and that's it. They no longer seem interested in what's happening around them. Many people think it's just old age, making them tired of talking, or perhaps they're sad about something. But in truth, when an elderly person starts to withdraw and no longer wants to communicate, It could be a sign that they are entering the final stage of their life. As the body weakens, their life force also begins to fade. They no longer have the energy to chat like they used to. They might feel tired by everyday conversations and lose interest in the world around them. Some even begin to distance themselves from their loved ones, as if they are preparing for a departure that they can already feel coming. There's something special I've noticed. Many people, before they pass away, don't become completely distant. Sometimes, they say things that startle their children and grandchildren. Some grandparents might suddenly mention relatives who have already passed away. Or they might say things like, "I guess it'll be my turn soon," or "I don't think I have much time left." Many families, upon hearing this, scold them, saying, "Dad, Mom, why would you say something so morbid?" But my friends, these are not morbid jokes. This might be their way of expressing how they feel. So, what should we do in this situation? The most important thing is to be patient and listen. Don't force them to talk, but also don't let them sink into loneliness. Sometimes, just sitting beside them, holding their hand, and letting them know that someone is always there for them is enough. Have you ever experienced this? Did you have a loved one who changed in this way before they passed? If so, please share your story in the comments. Maybe what you share will help someone else recognize these signs sooner, so they can spend more time with the people they love. The third sign, sleeping much more than usual. My friends, if you pay attention, you might notice an elderly person in your family sleeping a lot more lately. Before, they might have woken up early, walked around the yard, made a morning cup of coffee, watched the news, or chatted with the family. But now, they sleep all the time. Sometimes, they finish a meal and want to go right back to bed. They might even be awake for only a few short periods during the day before drifting back to sleep. Many people just think it's normal for old people to sleep a lot. But in reality, this could be a sign that their body is slowly closing a chapter. As their health declines, the body no longer has enough energy to function as it once did. Sleep becomes a natural mechanism to help them reduce fatigue. However, it's important to note that this is not like normal sleep. An elderly person in their final stage of life often sleeps more deeply and is harder to wake up. And when they do wake up, they may still feel tired and have no desire to talk or do anything. This isn't just a sign of old age, but it could be the body's way of preparing for the final transition. There are cases where, before passing away, an elderly person sleeps for many days straight. Then, one day, they suddenly wake up, completely alert, talking and laughing as if nothing was wrong. The family is overjoyed, thinking their health is improving. But they don't realize that this might be the last moment of clarity before they fall into an eternal sleep. This is something many families have witnessed, but when it happens, they are still taken by surprise. So, should you be worried if you see a loved one sleeping more than before? The key is to observe if the increased sleep is accompanied by other signs, like eating less, talking less, or having long, deep slumbers. If it is, take advantage of this time to be with them more. Say the things that need to be said, and do the things that need to be done. Because some moments only come once in a lifetime, and when they pass, we can never get them back. The fourth sign, forgetfulness and confusion about time and space. My friends, have you ever seen a loved one in your family start to become forgetful? Even having moments where they seem lost in another world. They might forget what day it is, or not remember if they've already eaten. Sometimes, they even call their own children or grandchildren by the wrong name. At first, everyone thinks it's just a sign of old age, that being forgetful is normal when you get older. But listen, if this happens frequently, especially when they start to get confused about time and space, it could be a subtle sign that they are in the final stage of their life. Some elderly people might ask a question in the morning and completely forget by the afternoon, asking the same thing over and over again. Sometimes, they can remember stories from their distant past with perfect clarity, but can't recall something that happened just a few minutes ago. What's particularly notable is when they start talking about relatives who have passed away. Sometimes, they even speak as if they just saw them. Have you ever heard an elderly person say something like, "My mother came to visit me last night," or "Your grandfather was just standing right here. Didn't you see him?" Such statements can startle the family. But in truth, this isn't necessarily a hallucination. It could be a part of their transition process. In other cases, an elderly person may no longer recognize places that were once very familiar. They might get lost in their own home. They ask questions like, "Whose house is this? Why am I here? When can I go home?" In their minds, they may be living in a time from the distant past, a place where they feel more at home than in the present reality. So, what should you do when you see these signs in a loved one? The most important thing is not to scold or correct them too much. When they are confused, you can gently guide them and help them feel safe. Instead of trying to force them to remember, what matters most is patience, love, and spending more time by their side. Because while memories may fade with time, the love we have for each other will always remain. The fifth sign: unusual changes in behavior and subtle goodbyes. My friends, have you ever seen an elderly person in your family suddenly change their personality completely? Doing things they've never done before. Someone who was always quiet and reserved might suddenly become more talkative and ask a lot of questions. Someone who was frugal and careful with money their whole life might suddenly start giving money and belongings to their children and grandchildren, giving instructions for everything as if they are preparing to go on a long journey. Most importantly, some of them say things that sound normal at first, but when you think back on them, you realize they were subtle goodbyes they were leaving behind. Many families have shared that before a loved one passed away, they would suddenly call and visit people they hadn't seen in a long time. They would bring up old memories or carefully instruct their children to take care of each other in the future and not to let their parents be lonely on their death anniversaries or holidays. Some even clean up their corner of the room, organize their clothes, and then quietly look at everything around them as if they want to remember it one last time. These actions might be very small, but if you pay attention, you'll see that something is very different. Another special thing is that some people, just before they pass, even though their health was very poor, will suddenly have a day where they become very alert and cheerful. They eat better, and their family is overjoyed, thinking they've recovered. But they don't realize that this is often the final moment of peace before they fall into their eternal sleep. This is something many have witnessed, but only in hindsight do they truly understand its meaning. My friends, perhaps in your own life, you have heard or witnessed stories like these. Do you have a loved one who had similar changes before they passed, which you only recognized later? If so, please share so we can all listen and better understand the subtle messages our elders try to send before they leave us. And most importantly, cherish the moments you have with your loved ones. Because no one knows how much time we have left to say, "I love you." My friends, this life is uncertain. No one can know what tomorrow will bring. But the important thing is not to worry or be afraid, but to know how to cherish every moment we have together. While you can still care for, listen to, and love one another, do it now. Don't wait until your loved one is gone to regret the things you never said or the moments you never spent with them. But you see, not everyone passes away because of illness or old age. Some people seem healthy but leave very quickly, while others are chronically ill but live for a very long time. So, what determines this? Actually, beyond the external signs, there are deeper reasons that affect longevity that few people notice. It's not just a matter of physical health, but also psychology, spirit, and very subtle internal factors. So, what are the 5 reasons that cause an elderly person to pass away more quickly? What can help them live longer that many people don't expect? I'll share that right now. Please don't miss it. Cause number 1: the silent progression of underlying diseases. My friends, many people think that when an elderly person passes away, it's simply due to old age. But in reality, old age is not the direct cause. It's the silent, underlying diseases within the body that are the deciding factor. Some diseases don't cause obvious symptoms, but when they flare up, they can cause health to decline very rapidly. Did you know that many older adults have chronic conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, kidney disease, or heart conditions? But because there's no immediate pain, they often downplay it or don't pay attention. They think living with the disease is normal. But in reality, these conditions are like a rope silently tightening around the body, bit by bit. They weaken the internal organs and the immune system until it becomes the last straw that breaks the camel's back, causing them to pass away faster than we'd think. Some people are walking and eating normally one day, but after a minor stroke, a fleeting heart failure, or a sudden bout of acute kidney failure, their body quickly deteriorates. At that point, even with treatment, it's very difficult to fully recover because an older person's resilience is not what it used to be. In particular, diseases like the decline in liver, kidney, or lung function often have no clear symptoms at first. But when they are discovered, it's often at a very late stage. So, how can we recognize and reduce the risks from these underlying conditions? The most important thing is not to wait until you're sick to worry about treatment, but to focus on early prevention. The elderly need regular health checkups, not just to know if they have a disease, but to monitor important numbers like blood pressure, blood sugar, and liver and kidney function. Some older people have a fear of hospitals, a fear of finding out they're sick and then worrying. But my friends, knowing early so you can manage it is always better than finding out too late and being filled with regret. 'Cause number 2, a decline in spirit and the loss of the will to live. My friends, there's something very special about human beings that few people notice. Our spirit has a huge impact on our health and longevity. There are some elderly people who, despite chronic illnesses, live for a very long time because they always have motivation, joy, and reasons to keep going. But on the other hand, there are people with no serious illnesses who, after a short period of falling into depression and sadness, decline very quickly and pass away before anyone knows it. Have you ever seen an older person who seemed to change completely after losing a loved one? Before, they were healthy and active, but after the emotional shock, they gradually became quiet, stopped smiling, and lost all interest in life. Someone who once loved gardening or chatting with their grandchildren might suddenly lose all motivation to do anything, just sitting in one place, quietly staring into the distance. Loss, loneliness, the feeling that no one needs them anymore, these things can cause an older person to slowly give up without anyone realizing. There are grandparents who, after their children got married and their grandchildren grew up, found that everyone was busy with their own lives. No one was there to talk to them regularly. Day after day, they were alone with just a radio, eating their meals by themselves, with no one paying attention or asking how they were. Gradually, they fall into a sense of loneliness. And you know what? Loneliness in old age is even more terrifying than illness. When there's no one left to share with, when they no longer feel important in anyone's life, many older adults begin to lose their will to live. So how can we help our loved ones avoid this? The most important thing isn't medicine, it's attention. You may not be able to be with your loved one every day, but a phone call, a family dinner, a simple "how are you?" is enough to make them feel loved. Sometimes, just sitting down and listening to them tell stories about the old days is enough to help them find joy in life again. Have you ever seen an older person suddenly become quiet, withdrawn, and no longer interested in life as they were before? If so, don't ignore it. Spend more time with them. Because sometimes, a little bit of love can extend a lifetime. Cause number 3, the immune system weakens with age. My friends, have you ever wondered why older people get sick more often, and when they do, they recover much more slowly than young people? The reason is that their immune system has gradually weakened over time, leaving the body without enough strength to fight off diseases. This is one of the deep-seated reasons why an elderly person can pass away quickly, and many people don't pay attention to it. The immune system is like the body's protective barrier, helping to fight off bacteria, viruses, and other disease-causing agents. When we're young, this barrier is very strong. If you get a cold, the flu, or a minor infection, the body heals itself quickly. But as you get older, the immune system declines. Even small wounds take longer to heal. A common cold can become dangerous, especially with infections like pneumonia, urinary tract infections, or even just a simple skin sore. If not detected in time, they can quickly lead to serious complications. Many people, once they pass the age of 70 or 80, their bodies can no longer produce strong immune cells like they used to. Not to mention, they often have underlying conditions like diabetes or high blood pressure, which also weaken the immune system even faster. That's why, with just a change in the weather, a minor infection, or a bout of pneumonia, they can decline very rapidly. You might have noticed that many elderly people who are hospitalized for pneumonia with a high fever are initially alert. But after just a few days, they can become lethargic, lose their strength, and may not pull through. So, what can you do to help your loved ones? The most important thing is that prevention is better than cure. Help the elderly maintain a diet full of nutrition. Supplement with foods rich in vitamin C, D, and zinc to boost their resistance. You should also encourage them to do gentle exercise, go outside to breathe fresh air, and get some morning sun to help their body maintain the best possible health. And especially, don't overlook vaccinations for the flu and pneumonia, as this is an effective way to reduce the risk of serious infections. 'Cause number 4, lack of proper care and attention. My friends, there's something that few people realize. Care and attention that aren't quite right can also cause an elderly person to weaken more quickly. Many people think that as long as they provide enough food, clothing, and medicine, they are taking good care of their elders. But in reality, elderly people need more than just material things. They need companionship, love, and a sense of peace. If they feel abandoned, lonely, or that no one truly cares about them, their health can also decline very quickly. Have you ever noticed that some grandparents are healthy and cheerful when they live in their own rural home? But when they move to the city to live with their children, they gradually become sad, withdrawn, and even get sick more often. It's not because they aren't eating better food. It's because they feel lost and out of place in their new life, with no one to talk to and no sense of familiarity. There are also those who, after their children get married and everyone gets busy, are left at home alone all day, confined within 4 walls. That loneliness gradually wears down their spirit, causing them to lose their motivation to live. Not only that, some families, despite loving their elders very much, provide care in the wrong way. Some worry too much, controlling everything and not letting the older person do anything at all, which makes them feel like they've lost their sense of self-worth. Others are neglectful, thinking that providing enough money for medicine is sufficient. But in reality, the elderly need to be listened to. They need to be included in family life. They need to feel that they are still useful. So, what can you do to care for your loved ones better? The most important thing is not material possessions, but true presence. Take the time to talk with them, to let them share memories of the past, to make them feel they are still an important part of the family. If possible, let them participate in small tasks that suit their health, like watering plants, shelling peas, or watching the grandchildren. Don't let them feel like they are just a burden, just sitting there waiting for time to pass. Do you think that sometimes just a simple question, a hand to hold, or a family meal can make your loved one happier and healthier? If you have an elderly loved one, take a moment to look at them and see if they are truly happy. Because some small things can extend the precious years we still have together. 'Cause number 5, the body's natural biological changes. My friends, there's a truth that everyone must accept. The human body is like a machine, and at a certain age, it will gradually slow down and then stop working. Even without a serious illness, even without a major crisis, when the internal organs are just too tired after so many years of operation, the body will naturally adjust to prepare for a gentle departure. This is a natural process, but many people often don't notice it. Have you ever seen an elderly person gradually eat less, sleep more, walk more slowly, and then one day, they just want to lie still, with no interest in daily activities? That is not a sign of illness, but a process of deep aging from within. As age increases, the heart no longer beats as strongly as it once did. The lungs no longer take deep breaths like in their youth. The kidneys and liver no longer filter everything as efficiently as when they were young. Everything gradually enters a state of rest. And when a certain limit is reached, the body no longer has the energy to continue. There are grandparents who have no specific illness. They simply become quieter, move less, and then gradually sink into a state of deep sleep. There are also those who, one day, suddenly become more alert, call their children and grandchildren over to give them final instructions, and then just a few days later, they pass away peacefully. This is a very natural sign, a way the human body prepares for the end in the gentlest way possible. So, what should you do when you see these signs in a loved one? The most important thing is to be by their side. Cherish these final moments. Help them feel peaceful and at ease. Don't force them to eat when they don't want to. Don't make them try to exercise when their body is truly exhausted. Instead, hold their hand. Show them that they are not alone, that their family is always beside them. My friends, life is a journey, and everyone must reach the end of the road. But the most important thing is not to keep them here for as long as possible, but to help them feel warm and at peace in their final days. If you have an elderly loved one, spend more time with them. Say the words of love while you still can. Because sometimes just a look, just a hand to hold, is enough for them to depart in peace. My friends, after talking about the deep reasons why an elderly person passes away, I keep remembering a story I once heard. This story not only made me think a lot, but perhaps you will also see a reflection of yourself or your loved ones in it. But before I tell it, I want you to take a moment to ask yourself, if tomorrow was the last time you could see the elderly loved one in your home, what would you do differently than you did today? The story I'm about to tell is not an unfamiliar one. It doesn't have any dramatic or tragic twists. It's just an ordinary story about an old father and the last months of his life. But sometimes, the most ordinary things are what haunt us the most. Please listen closely. The story of the father by the window. Late afternoon. The sunlight faded on the small country road. The old house sat quietly in the corner of the garden, its shingles weathered, its wooden gate faded by the years. On the porch, an old man sat silently in a worn wooden rocking chair, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. His name was Arthur, and he had been sitting there for a very long time, as if waiting for someone to return. It had been over a month since Michael, his only son, had come home to visit. The last time Michael called, he spoke in a rush. "I'm so busy lately, Dad. Please take care of yourself. I'll come home when I can. I'll come home sometime." That was the phrase Michael used most often whenever his father asked. But sometime had stretched from 1 week to the next, and then into another month. Arthur didn't blame his son. He understood that Michael was busy with his job and his own small family in the city. It was just that, as he got older, the days felt longer and quieter. This house used to be filled with the sound of laughter, the voices of him and his wife and their young child. But then his wife passed away, his son grew up, and everyone went on to live their own lives. The spacious house suddenly felt empty. Meals became more and more lonely. He still cooked for himself, still took care of himself, but sometimes, sitting at the dinner table all alone, the food in front of him suddenly tasted bland. Every day, he kept his routine, brewing a cup of coffee in the morning and sitting on the porch, looking out at the road. He wasn't expecting anything grand. He just hoped that one day, his son would show up unexpectedly without calling first. He hoped he would hear that familiar call of Dad, see Michael smile, and watch his grandchildren run around in the yard. But day after day, that hope remained just a hope. Every time Michael called, Arthur would always say he was fine, that he was eating and sleeping normally. But that wasn't the truth. Lately, he had started to feel more tired. He was eating less. His sleep was more fitful. There were nights he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, and suddenly realized that maybe he didn't have much time left. His neighbors sometimes saw him walking more slowly. When they asked how he was, he would just smile and say, "I'm old now. It happens to all of us." Brenda, his kind neighbor, called Michael several times, telling him that his father seemed weaker and that he should come for a visit. But every time, Michael would reply, "Yes, I know. I'll try to arrange something." Michael thought his dad was fine, just like always. But he didn't know that sometimes an old person weakens not because of illness, but because of loneliness. As the last days of autumn arrived, the air turned chilly. Arthur walked slowly back into the house. His eyes fell on the old oak hutch where the family photos were kept. He took out an old picture, a photo of Michael as a little boy, when he was always clinging to his parents. He smiled quietly, then let out a soft sigh. He began to clean the house, wiping down every keepsake. He carefully folded his clothes, as if preparing for something. Then, one afternoon, he decided to call his son. This time, his voice was slower, with a certain weight to it that wasn't usually there. "Michael," he said, "when you come back, stop by. There's something I want to talk to you about." Michael was in a meeting at that moment. He saw the call come in and silenced it. He thought it was just his dad calling like always to ask a few questions, so he figured he could call back later. But that night, when he called back, his father said only one thing. "It's nothing. I just wanted to hear your voice." Hearing that, Michael just chuckled lightly. "Take care of yourself, Dad. I'll see if I can arrange something and come home soon." But Arthur didn't say anything more. He just said, "Okay," and hung up. Michael didn't notice it, but if he had been more observant, he would have realized there was something in that phrase that sounded like a gentle goodbye. A few days later, his neighbor called again. She told Michael that Arthur was eating very little now, just staying in the house and not going outside like he used to. This time, a sense of unease began to creep into Michael's heart. He hastily took a day off from work to go back home. On the way, Michael told himself, "It's been a long time since I've been home. Dad probably just misses me. It's probably nothing too serious." But when he arrived, the house was silent in a strange way. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, a faint yellow light flickered through the window frame. Michael walked in and called out softly, "Dad, I'm home." There was no answer. He walked faster toward his father's room. He saw him lying peacefully on the bed, the blanket neatly tucked in. His face was calm, as if he were just sleeping. But when Michael touched his father's hand, a chilling cold shot up his spine. Arthur was gone. Quietly, without a single word of farewell. In the corner of the room was a small bundle that he had prepared. Inside was a short letter, a notebook filled with stories from the old days, and an old handkerchief he used to wipe the sweat from Michael's brow when he was a little boy. That was all. No blame, no resentment. Just the things he wanted to leave for his son, but in the end, couldn't give to him with his own hands. Michael sat silently on the bed, his heart aching. He suddenly remembered all the calls his father had made to him. The times he said, "When you come back, stop by." All the signs he had missed, thinking his father was still strong, that there was still plenty of time. But he was wrong. My friends, are we sometimes just like Michael? Do we think that our loved ones will always be there, that they will always be around? And so we get caught up in our work, in our own lives, and forget that they're growing older every day, weaker every day. And no one can wait for us forever. Don't let the promise, "I'll come home sometime," become a promise that is never kept. Because one day, when you want to return, the person you love may no longer be sitting there, waiting for you. And finally, if you have someone in your life whom you haven't seen in a long time, someone who is waiting for a call from you, please don't wait any longer. Because sometimes, just one timely word of care can make someone feel so much warmer. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't let what remains be only regret. I'll see you again in the next story.